add that to the DNI's point, many of them are contributing in other ways, and there are important ways. And while there's few that might be doing defense in the Red Sea, specifically, they're doing things that we actually count on, and we appreciate the partnership, but would welcome anyone else who would want to participate.
Senator Cotton.
Senator Ernst raised the media reports that suggest President Biden may admit Gazans to this country as refugees. I agree with her. I think that would be insane. There's a reason why Egypt won't let them in, and Egypt is right on their border and speaks their language and has a vested interest in protecting itself from threats from Gaza. If they won't let them in, I don't think the United States should let them in either. But I want to focus now on the actual threats from the crisis at our southern border of actual migrants who've crossed in this country already. Director Haines, FBI director, recently said the terrorist threat level that we're contending with right now is at a whole other level. Do you agree with Director Ray's assessment?
Yes, I think it's just absolutely the terrorist threat level is of grave concern, and we can obviously have discussions in closed sessions about what that means, but so I would agree with that.
How many illegal immigrants on the terror watch list have been caught at the southern border this year?
I believe, I don't remember the number exactly, and we can get you that. Many of them, as I recall it, are ones that came out of Colombia. We should give you.
I think
further
the answer
details
is
on
75. Do you think we pitched a perfect game at the border and caught every single migrant on the terror watch list trying to cross into our country?
No, but being on the terrorist watch list, meaning that if there is known or suspected terrorists or there's information that they may have had contact with, doesn't actually mean that they are all.
Okay, how many terrorists have tried to cross the southern border during the Biden administration's tenure?
Sir, I don't know that I can give you a precise
I think the answer
number
is
on that.
357. Again, do you think we pitched a perfect game for the last 3.5 years and got 357 out of 357? No, I don't think so. How many terrorists tried to cross the southern border during the 4 years of the Trump administration?
I don't know, sir.
I think the answer is 11. The Biden administration has also granted entry to more than 7,300 illegal aliens who are known as special interest aliens, which means they come from notorious terrorist breeding grounds like Uzbekistan, Syria, and Iran, and pose a potential national security risk. That number was based on data collected before Hamas's October 7th atrocity against Israel. Since then, do you think that there may be an even greater surge of Islamic extremists trying to cross our open southern border?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
The Biden administration had granted entry to more than 7,300 illegal aliens in the special interest alien category from places like Uzbekistan, Syria, and Iran, and that number came before the October 7th atrocity in Israel. Since then, do you think there might have been an even greater surge in Islamic extremists trying to cross our open southern border?
We haven't seen Hamas directing essentially folks or others in the region to come into the United States to engage in attacks from the Gaza conflict. That doesn't mean that obviously this isn't something that could develop over time, but we're not seeing that related to the Gaza conflict, if that's
last year, Customs and Border Patrol officials in San Diego issued an internal intelligence notice titled "Foreign Fighters of the Israel-Hamas conflict may potentially be encountered at the southwest border." So CBP certainly expects Islamic radicals will try to exploit the border. Do you think that report is excitable and exaggerated?
No, I think it's absolutely appropriate to be vigilant on these issues. And as we've talked about in the context of the Gaza conflict, we've seen that galvanize, in a sense, different terrorists around the world in different ways. And so I think we're just trying to be as careful as we can. We just haven't seen.
Okay. I would turn to China briefly here. Last week, Secretary Blinken, on his ballyhooed trip to China, said that China is, quote, overwhelmingly the #1 supplier for Russia's war against Ukraine. Do you agree with Secretary Blinken's assessment?
There is no question that the dual-use material that's coming from China is having an enormous impact.
Is China overwhelmingly the #1 supplier?
I mean, they are overwhelmingly the number one supplier to the defense industry in Russia right
Okay.
now.
He also said that those supplies are having, quote, a material effect, end quote, on the war in Ukraine. Do you agree with Secretary Blinken's assessment there?
I do. I indicated in my opening remarks that we see their supply as actually one of the key factors that essentially adjusted the momentum on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Okay, on March 18th, 2022, 3 weeks after the war started, President Biden had a call with Xi Jinping where he said, quote, do not provide, quote, material support, end quote, to Russia. Otherwise, you and China could find yourself in, quote, significant jeopardy, end quote. That appeared to have gotten Xi Jinping's attention in 2022 if you look at trade data, but over the last year, China has now become what you and Secretary Blinken call Russia's overwhelmingly number one supplier. One of your predecessors as Deputy National Security Advisor says that Joe Biden is now not enforcing the red line he drew in March 18th. Do you agree that President Biden is now refusing to enforce that red line he drew with Xi Jinping in March 2022 about providing material support to China?
I don't. Here's the challenge that I think we've encountered, which is basically there was a lot of focus on China not providing lethal support, and what they have done is try to avoid what is characterized as lethal support. In other words, a fully constructed gun or weapon system, et cetera, to Ukraine, and that has been something that they've maintained. But what has happened in the meantime is they provided effectively dual-use materials such as nitrocellulose, a whole series of critically important long sort of holes in the tent for the Russia reconstitution of their defense industry. And that's been the space that policymakers I know have been working, including with Congress, to try to prevent from going to Russia. And there's been mixed success in pushing back against that.
My time is up. I would dispute the characterization that China is only providing dual-use material, but I don't think there can be any question that President Biden drew a red line in March of 2022, and he has not been enforcing it against China since.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Gillibrand, please.
Director Haines, earlier this week, the administration published